Hey everyone, and welcome back to Downtune Dissection. Today we're going to get into the brutal deathcore scene, and we're going to talk about Brand of Sacrifice's new album, God Hand, which just released on July 5th. It's a fantasy sort of concept album, and man, there is a lot to unpack, so let's get into it.
What'd the devil give you for your soul, Tommy?
Well, he taught me to play this here guitar real good.
Oh, son, for that you traded your everlasting soul?
Well, I wouldn't use it.
All right, so wow, Brand of Sacrifice, guys. If you don't know them, they're pretty new. They've been around since like early 2018 when they released their Interstice EP, and they got some attention from that. They're a band, like, they hail from Toronto and Manhattan area. They're different members. They kind of have like a brutal deathcore, slam metalcore, that sort of influence overall, that sort of vibe and sound. And Interstice, I remember hearing one of the songs off of it, and it was good, but it didn't quite take me by storm the way that I might have wanted to. Because now, going back, I'm like, ugh, maybe I should have paid more attention, because, it was Conviction was the song that I had heard. And so, you hear, I didn't even know that they were coming out with God Hand in July, to be honest. I really hadn't heard anything about it. I hadn't bothered to follow up with them following the Interstice, which, again, what it is, looking back at it, it's a good EP, and I didn't really appreciate it for what it was at the time. So now I'm like, shit, that's on me. But looking at God Hand, man, oh my goodness, there is no way not to notice this album. It is really just, because I'm the type of person, I love finding new music. I really do. And I love finding new bands. And in a genre deathcore, metalcore, they have been around. They're not new at this point. They are at the point, there's just so much saturation, really, and a lot of the music out there isn't good. It's that simple. It just isn't good. There's so much deathcore being produced that, and a lot of it sounds so similar. And even you look at bands like Thy Art Is Murder, people are criticizing them for the new singles that are releasing off their upcoming Human Target album, and everyone's like, this sounds just like Puppet Master. And I think that complaint was mostly with regards to Make America Hate Again, which I didn't necessarily dislike as a song. I just think that Human Target and Death Squad are better songs to release as singles. Death Squad Anthem, I'm sorry. And I know, like, okay, they're from Australia, so they're obviously going to be of a certain political bent, and that may or may not be politics that I agree with. Spoiler alert, I don't really agree with all of their politics. That's not to say that I am so in love with Donald Trump or anything like that. That's really just not the truth. But I don't really want politics brought into my music. Ultimately, that's just not what interests me. That's why Human Target and Death Squad Anthem are kind of interesting. But you look at Megadeth with Hangar 18 and Rust in Peace Polaris. There's always been politics brought into music to some extent, and I love the entire Rust in Peace album, and I kind of just ignore the politics part of it as best as possible. And so I'll feel that same way about when Human Target, the full album, comes out, and sure enough, there's more in there about the politics. But I'm sorry, I don't know how this got so off the rails. Basically, everyone was just criticizing Make America Hate Again for being a song that sounds exactly like Puppet Master off of Dear Desolation. and there's so much saturation of deathcore out there. And this applies to metalcore too, but we're talking more specifically the deathcore genre, and so much of it out there is just honestly crap. I mean, there's a lot out there that people appreciate, but there's also a lot out there that's just crap, like absolutely underproduced, overproduced, just gutturals that don't even sound. I get when people that aren't into deathcore or metalcore say, oh, Cookie Monster vocals, but there are actually people out there that cannot do vocals and they sound like straight up Cookie Monster or some like Satan figure that just, it doesn't sound good. But then you have, your Phil Bozeman's and etc. And to bring it back around to Brand of Sacrifice, you have your Kyle Andersons who, oh my gosh, man, the God Hand vocals are so good. Just so good, man. I mean, there's a lot of range displayed here by Kyle Anderson. I really appreciate that. And not to say that he didn't have it on the Interstice, but here I think, I mean, it's a debut album. They obviously sat down, came up with their concept album, which is based off the Berserk manga, I suppose, is that's the idea I get, because I know that God Hand is a reference to that, as well as the Branded, as well as their name in the first place, Brand of Sacrifice. So all these references, I really know nothing about it beyond that, just looking into this band and kind of seeing that that's what those are references to. So if you're a fan out there and you're like, oh, I know what you're talking about, Berserk manga bullshit, whatever, go ahead and yell at me in the comments or on Twitter or whatever, because obviously I don't really know what I'm talking about as far as that goes. I just know that they do, and that's kind of cool that they're nerdy about it, man. And they have this little concept album here that it has like a very fantasy sound to it. It's really interesting, and I mean, man, look at the cover art. If you have a moment, look at this cover art. It is so awesome. It's something different, obviously, as far as like, oh, well, it's, some demonic spiky creature and there's a woman on the front. Okay, well, a naked woman on the front. Yeah, I guess in that sense it's predictable, but it just feels fresh and new and different. And that honestly goes into the music. The music feels fresh, different. I mean, Begin, the first track is titled Begin. That's a good entry into this album, but I think of it as sort of the overture, or it's ramping you up into this album. But Divinity is really where this thing gets going, and holy shit. Divinity, man, they are going a mile a minute. They really bring that brutality, because on their Facebook, they refer to themselves as being brutal death metal, and that's where that brutality comes in, with just the relentless speed. That Harley Davidson double pedal, man, is just it's so good. And like I said, Kyle Anderson on vocals, because so you have Kyle Anderson on vocals, Michael Leo Valeri on guitar and production, Liam Beeson. I almost want to know, like, is that real? Is his name really Liam Beeson? Because it sounds like he's making fun of Liam Neeson or something. It's probably real, and I'm just being crazy. But he is also guitar. Dallas Bricker, that is one hell of a porn name right there, on the bass. And Rob Zalishki on drums. Man, good for you, Rob, because these drums are... And again, for having only an EP before this with only 5 songs on it, now we're coming into your debut album right out the gate, and the production is just amazing. It's a godsend, really is, because you can hear everything. The instruments don't sound smushed together. Nothing sounds over compressed. The vocals are clear and clean sounding, not clean vocals, but they sound good. You can hear the nuances in his voice. I mean, if you're going to put on this good of a performance in vocals, you want that to shine through, and I think that it really does. Divinity, hell of a track. Fortress is great. Charlotte, Charlotte and God Hand have some of the best guitar squealies brought into music, and there may be some production tricks there that I'm just not aware of because it's hard to find much information on the band at this time, to be honest. And as far as not having as much experience in actual production, I mean, playing guitar and the production of the guitar are two completely different things. So I'm not exactly sure how they are reproducing those squealies, but they sound so good. And it's just like a very sick, dissonant, twisted sound to it in both Charlotte and God Hand. The Branded is good. I like that one. We'll get to Hill of Swords and Afterimage. And then Claw Marks and Beast of Darkness are all the tracks on this album are solid, but the ones that really stand out to me are probably Divinity, Charlotte, Claw Marks, and God Hand. I would say those are the ones that stand out the most above everything else, but that's not to, detract from any of these other tracks, except for Hill of Swords and Afterimage. I mean, like I said, I like the fantasy feel of this album, the fantastical concept album feel as a prog rock fan of bands such as Rush and so on, as you've heard me say, and the progressive metalcore scene I enjoy as well. For me, Hill of Swords and Afterimage, I like bringing that cinematic fantasy orchestral feel into this. But the only thing is I get a very video game feel out of it. Excuse me. So that's, again, it doesn't ruin anything for me. Well, except for if I'm trying to use this album to work out to, I basically have to skip those songs. Or if I'm on a run because they're just a little too slow to really keep up the energy. And honestly, the other thing is it just stops you from hearing what else is on there. So I'm torn because I do like it. It's something fresh. It's something new. And I like it in the sense that it adds to the atmosphere of the album overall in that fantasy, orchestral concept album sense. But I think it takes away from the momentum of the album, especially having Hill of Swords, then Claw Marks. And then again, with Afterimage, it's like they're put very closely together. It's not like we're looking at, Breaking Benjamin with Ember, where it has their intro and outro. Or and that's just the first album that came to my mind. But I mean, there's Thousand Foot Crutch. There's plenty of other albums that have intros and outros that start off slow and end slow. And that's something completely different altogether. Or one or two slow songs spread throughout the album. But in the case of 10 songs, having slow orchestral, then a brutal song, Claw Marks, love it, and then another orchestral with Afterimage. Again, they sound good. They're obviously, synthesizers all the way, which again isn't my favorite, but this is why I'm so torn, because I really appreciate the fact that they're out here trying to do something different. It sounds different and it sounds good ultimately. It just feels like, even though it's adding to the atmosphere, their placement on here is a little out of place. And it does slow down the album as a whole. I think I really would have appreciated, you have Begin, then you have then you put Hill of Swords, or then you have Begin and Divinity to really start off strong. Give me Hill of Swords. It's only 1 minute and 8 seconds long. Then have Fortress, Charlotte, The Branded, Claw Marks, Beast of Darkness, God Hand, and then add with Afterimage. Afterimage even sounds like it belongs at the end of an album, And I just feel like you would get that opener, then you can slow it down for a short minute, then you can just brutal the rest of the way through, and then kind of close it out calmly, emotionally, give it that atmosphere. And I would still listen to Afterimage if it was at the end, and I still do listen to it when I'm not working out, because I do really like the feel of it, the atmosphere that it lends to this album. But again, I know at this point I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think the reason that is it seems like such a missed opportunity whereas I would otherwise say this is essentially a perfect album, that really does feel like a detriment here. And also, I'll say I'm looking forward to getting the lyrics on some of these songs. I really couldn't find any solid lyrics for these songs, and I think that that's something that I really would like to see, because just to get into, okay, well, what is and what isn't considered part of this concept that they're trying to get across. I see that they have their lyrics here actually in the descriptions of their YouTube uploads. I don't know if I necessarily love that. And as far as I'm seeing, it's not for every song. Is it for every song? So it just kind of takes away, I think, or it doesn't take away. I'm sorry, that's not the wording I'm looking for. I guess I should say I'm basically just hoping to learn more. Yeah, it's not for every song. So I'd like to see more of the lyrics drop somewhere. Eventually we'll get there and we'll get that. And it gets me, excited to see exactly what the kind of concept at heart is here, because I love a good concept album. Like most recently that I've been listening to a lot that I've really appreciated would be False Idol by Veil of Maya, as a sort of, dictatorial figure who puts himself high above everybody else and gets deposed, blah, blah, blah. It just interests me. So I'm really just interested to see what all they're trying to get at and how closely related it is to this Berserk manga that I was talking about. But yeah, all in all, really, really like, and that was the other thing too. I like this album, and I appreciate how it can be something different than just straight up politics. And that applies to, I'll talk more about Veil of Maya in the future, I'm sure. I plan to. I love them. But that concept album, False Idol, or even, Matriarch was kind of a concept album as well, talking about different female figures that inspired them in fiction and popular culture. That's really cool. I actually really like that idea. There's a song about Phoenix, Jean Grey from X-Men. There's Mikasa is obviously an Attack on Titan reference. So there's so much good stuff there to talk about within your songs without it having to be just, people suck in the modern day, because I like to get out of the modern day as much as possible. No matter what side of the aisle you sit on, I think it's just nice to not always have to hear politics oversaturate every single part of your life. Like, oh my goodness, I don't want to hear this constantly. So with God Hand, it's cool to get into a different concept. And I guess that was my point as well, they could still be getting at some sort of political message behind the concept, the story concept, but we don't need it to be in the forefront. Like, if you're having to shove it down our throats, then maybe I just don't want to hear it at all. And I'm probably in the minority of people that feel this way, although I have seen other people complaining about Make America Hate Again that are, even also just not even fans of that side of the aisle or that administration. And they're like, yeah, but I hear enough crappy stuff about him in the administration. In real life, I don't need to hear my favorite band, they were saying, their favorite deathcore band, also sing about how crappy it is, because we already know. We don't need to hear it again over and over and over. We already know, and I'm kind of with that. We already know. Let's move on to different topics, something more interesting. And again, haven't heard all of Human Target. It's not out yet. All we know is that one song very, all we know is that one song very obviously confronts it. But again, to speak to how much I enjoy this Brand of Sacrifice album, it's something out of the ordinary in that sense. It's something different. It sounds good. You need to check it out, man. There's just so much to enjoy here. And this is what I want to see more out of Deathcore in the future. As far as recent releases that I've enjoyed, I really like the new Chelsea Grin album as far as talking vocals, the new vocalist. So much better. Such an improvement. And you can go back and look at us talking about the Whitechapel controversy as well. Everyone's like, oh, clean vocals for Phil Bozeman. What is this? Blah, blah, blah. An entire song with nothing but singing. Yeah, because it's an emotional topic and he freaking kills it. Oh my goodness, the vocals on that song. The clean vocals, yes, but why not? He's done how many albums now with nothing but screaming for the most part? Like, why not let him get more into those cleans, man, and explore topics that matter to him that are on a personal level, something interesting and different. And definitely go back and check out that White. If you're agreeing with what I'm saying now, check out me and Chris talking about that new album, The Valley. I spaced for a moment, mainly because I'm just trying to process the concept art, the sound. You know, there were certainly issues that we had with that album, but overall, the fact that it's something different, as much as I loved Mark of the Blade and the song itself, The Saw is the Law, everyone loves that off of Endless War. So, you know, there's a lot of appreciation in my heart and my mind for things that sound different. And so I really, you know, and that's where I'm more likely to want to tolerate you covering a subject matter I don't love. Because I talked earlier about Hangar 18 and Rust in Peace Polaris, and that's because Megadeth sounded so different. You know, they were still growing as a band, and they're headed in a specific direction with their music, working towards getting more and more technical, and they were really pushing the sound. They were, at that time, directly competing still. They released Rust in Peace 1992. Metallica released the Black Album 91. They were still going straight up against Metallica. So if you're going to do the politics, I got it. It's going to be its own thing as far as like album to album. How does it sound? How do we feel about it? But man, not to get too rambly, you know, bringing it back to Brand of Sacrifice, definitely check this album out. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to love. Again, Kyle Anderson really, really killing it on these vocals. I think that I'll be interested to see what they do next. And also I'm hoping to see these guys live too, because that does matter to me. Not necessarily with every band, but as hyped as I am for how God Hand was, and now I'm going back and kind of listening to the Interstice more, getting more into that. These guys, I would like to see who they go on tour with. I know that they are going on tour this summer, but I didn't pay too much attention because I was pretty bummed it's not anywhere where I am. So yeah, I won't be seeing them, I don't think, anytime soon. But someday I will, and someday I'm going to be excited, and everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. So yeah, in closing, guys, thank you so much for listening. Please go check out the Brand of Sacrifice album, God Hand. Let me know what you think. And, you know, like, how do you feel about the instrumentals within this album? Because I think that there's got to be people out there that love it and think that they're perfectly placed. So I want to hear, what do you guys think? And go ahead and follow me on Twitter as well, @ClanMcClellan. You can tweet me, let me know thoughts. And I have been kind of bummed out because nobody's been giving me any suggestions of what they want to hear me talk about. So either that means you don't give a shit what I talk about, or you like what I've been talking about, or you don't even know what you want me to talk about. But if you have any idea of any album whatsoever, as long as I haven't talked about it before, which there has not that many episodes yet, so go ahead and let me know some stuff you'd be interested to hear me or also I'll get Chris back on the show, and there's some other people we've been trying to book. It's been hard. My schedule has been so busy, but we're working on it, trying to get you guys some different content, some different guests coming up here. So we'll see. We're still trying to grow this podcast, trying to get it a little bit better. And I know today was a little bit rambling, but all in all, just trying to improve, get better, and try to make this more fun for everybody. So yeah, thanks again, guys, for listening. Go check out some other videos on Dedicated to Art's channel on YouTube. There's all sorts of movie and music talk up there. Other episodes as well of Downtune Dissection. And next week, I think we're going to be talking some Lamb of God, which is interesting. Very, very interesting. I told Chris that I had listened to Ashes of the Wake, and he was thrilled, of course, but I think he's also nervous about what I'm going to say about it. So we're going to have quite the interesting conversation there, digging into a classic metalcore album there. And really, as widely loved as it is, there's still some discussion to be had there as far as like how good is it and what do we think about it when we take off the rose-colored glasses. If I can even get Chris to take those rose-colored glasses off, because I don't know. I mean, he's pretty partial to his old Lamb of God. But we're going to get into it, guys. Look forward to that. Go ahead and leave us a review, too, if you're listening in on iTunes. We'd greatly appreciate it. And can't wait to bring you more content. So until next time, see you in the pit.